Luxury market fraud. The luxury world is built on trust and secrecy, and that makes it the perfect hunting ground for brutal fraud. High-end art, jewelry, and collectibles often change hands without much paperwork. That means ownership is unclear, verification is almost impossible, and scams can thrive. The trick is simple. Sell the same $50 million painting to multiple buyers. Each investor thinks they own a piece, but in reality, none of them do. Fraudsters use shell companies and forged documents to cover their tracks. And because these markets rely on handshakes between trusted elites, nobody checks until it's too late. Inigo Philbrick was the poster child for this scheme. He was a polished young art dealer who moved in all the right circles. Behind the scenes, he sold overlapping ownership shares in the same works to investors, funds, and even museums. His charm and reputation kept the scam alive for years. By the time it collapsed, he had stolen around $86 million. The art world, however, hasn't changed much. With little regulation, fraud still hides in the background, proving again and again that beauty and theft often stand side by side. Tax haven exploitation. Corporations and many billionaires legally avoid taxes by routing profits through countries with minimal rates, creating massive advantages over competitors who pay full freight. Companies achieve this by licensing their own intellectual property to subsidiaries in tax havens, then paying themselves fees that shift profits to low-tax jurisdictions. Apple became famous for this in Europe. Billions in profits were routed through Ireland, where they paid as little as 0.005% tax. That's pennies on every million. On the personal side, investors like Peter Thiel have also been found guilty of this. Thiel bought PayPal shares for $2,000 inside a retirement account when the company was worthless, then watched it grow to over $5 billion, completely tax-free. He transformed rules meant for middle-class savers into a billionaire's personal tax shelter. These strategies let wealth accumulate exponentially faster than traditional approaches, creating compounding advantages that widen the gap between those who master the system and everyone else. The result is a world where billionaires sometimes pay lower rates than ordinary workers, using loopholes the rest of us can't access. Political rent-seeking. Some businesses don't win by being innovative. They win by bending politics to their will. This is called rent-seeking, using lobbying, donations, and connections to eliminate competition and guarantee profits. The playbook is straightforward. Spend millions to influence the right lawmakers, get laws and regulations written in your favor, then watch billions roll in. The sugar industry is a classic example. For decades, U.S. sugar producers pushed for tariffs and subsidies that kept prices artificially high. Consumers paid billions extra, while producers enjoyed steady profits with zero innovation. Pharmaceutical companies have also perfected this game. They spend more than $300 million every year on lobbying. Their goal? Extend patents and block generic versions of life-saving drugs. A pill that could cost $10 as a generic ends up being sold for $1,000, protected by laws they helped write. Rent-seeking is perfectly legal, but unfortunately it turns democracy into a marketplace. Politicians get campaign cash, lobbyists get influence, and industries get monopolies. Meanwhile, everyday people pay inflated prices. National wealth looting. When corrupt leaders run countries, they often treat the national treasury like a private bank account. This is wealth looting, stealing public money, hiding it overseas, and living in luxury while citizens struggle. It works because these rulers control courts, banks, and police. Anyone who questions them risks prison, exile, or worse. No one played the game better than Ferdinand Marcos in the Philippines. Between 1965 and 1986, he and his wife Imelda looted an estimated $5 billion to $13 billion from the country. They used fake foundations, shell companies, and Swiss bank accounts to move the money. So while millions of Filipinos lived in poverty, Imelda flaunted her wealth with thousands of shoes, diamond tiaras, and shopping sprees across the world. While schools and hospitals crumbled, the Marcos family lived like kings. Even after being overthrown, much of the stolen wealth was never recovered. Shockingly, the Marcos family remains politically powerful in the Philippines today, with Ferdinand Marcos Jr. elected president in 2022. War and disaster profiteering. Human suffering often becomes a business opportunity for those connected to power, who position themselves to capture money flowing through aid programs, reconstruction projects, and emergency loans before it reaches people who actually need help. Syria's civil war offered a chilling example. Asma al-Assad, the president's wife, started an organization called the Syria Trust for Development. On paper, it was supposed to give small loans and support to help people rebuild their lives. However, in practice, it turned into a way for her to collect money for herself and the regime. Families who were struggling were pushed to donate, and that money ended up in accounts tied to the ruling circle. Even international aid and local relief funds were diverted away from those in need and into regime-controlled hands. This pattern still repeats worldwide. In every major war or disaster, whether earthquakes, hurricanes, or pandemics, billions are stolen through no-bid contracts and shady reconstruction projects. The victims remain homeless and hungry, while elites profit from the disaster. It's one of the darkest ways to get rich, turning human misery into a balance sheet opportunity. Data harvesting. Data is the oil of this digital age, and most people give it away for free, but tech giants have discovered a way for every click, search, and scroll to be tracked, stored, and sold. Many social media, email, maps, and search engines don't cost money because users are not the customers, they are the product. Facebook took this model and turned it into a money machine. It built detailed profiles on billions of people, collecting not just posts and likes, but also browsing habits, purchases, and even data from people who never signed up. This information was then sold to advertisers, political campaigns, and app developers who paid top dollar for precision targeting. Once the system was in place, scaling was nearly free. 1 billion users turned into 2, then 3, with profits soaring each step of the way. The payoff was staggering. In 2021 alone, Facebook generated more than $100 billion in ad revenue. Mark Zuckerberg became one of the richest men alive, not by charging users, but by monetizing their private lives. The lesson is simple. In today's modern economy, if you're not paying for a product, you probably are the product. Worker exploitation. The oldest wealth strategy in history is still the most brutal: squeeze labor for maximum profit. Companies reduce costs by outsourcing labor to countries with weak protections, classifying workers as contractors to avoid benefits, or deliberately cutting hours to dodge healthcare laws. Fast fashion is the clearest example. Brands like Shine built billion-dollar empires on ultra-cheap labor. In some Chinese factories, workers earn just $20 a week while sewing clothes for up to 75 hours. This allows t-shirts to be sold for $3 while executives pocket massive margins. Consumers get cheap fashion, but the hidden cost is human suffering. The lower the wages, the higher the profits. Every dollar saved per worker becomes millions when multiplied across global supply chains. The irony is that the very people producing the wealth often can't afford the products they make. Worker exploitation remains the foundation of many modern billion-dollar industries. For companies, it's the easiest way to stay competitive. For workers, it's a trap with no way up. Online get-rich-quick schemes. The internet has created a new kind of scammer, the wealth influencer. The scam follows a predictable pattern. Hustlers post videos showing expensive cars, private jets, and cash stacks while claiming they made millions through simple online methods that they'll teach for thousands of dollars. They promise students can quit their jobs and make millions working just a few hours weekly, but the only person getting rich is the course seller. The Wi-Fi money scheme exemplified this approach, with the organizers promising people could make thousands monthly through simple online methods using fake testimonials, rented luxury props, and high-pressure sales tactics to sell expensive training programs. Most participants lost money instead of making it, while some faced lawsuits for promoting the scheme to others. The reality is that the successful lifestyle shown in videos is usually fake, funded by money stolen from previous victims. These schemes prey on people's desperation and dreams of financial freedom, turning hope into profit for scammers who understand that selling the dream of wealth is more profitable than actually creating it. Gambling addiction exploitation. Some entrepreneurs discovered that addiction is incredibly profitable, so they spend years building businesses designed to trigger compulsive spending through psychological manipulation rather than providing genuine entertainment value. They create games, apps, and platforms that exploit the same brain mechanisms as traditional gambling while targeting people who would never enter a casino. Candy Crush is the classic example. It looks harmless, colorful candies, cheerful music, but the design is engineered for compulsion. Levels get harder until progress feels impossible without paying. Lives run out and regenerate slowly unless users spend money to continue. Special boosters offer shortcuts at just the right moment of frustration. The result is a small percentage of players, called whales, spending thousands on digital items with no real value. King Digital built a billion-dollar empire on this model. Some individuals reported spending over $10,000 on Candy Crush, all for a game that's free to download. For companies like these, addiction isn't a side effect, it's the product. By By turning entertainment into compulsion, they proved again that the house always wins, even when the casino is disguised as a mobile app.